The wedding invitation arrived on a Tuesday, nestled between a water bill and a flyer for piano lessons. I nearly tossed it with the junk mail before noticing the heavy cream envelope with my name, Cordelia Markham, handwritten in elegant calligraphy. My breath caught when I opened it. Mr. and Mrs. Pierce Holloway request the honor of your presence at the marriage of their daughter, Valencia Holloway, to Desmond Ashford, Valencia. My ex-husband's name staring back at me in embossed silver letters. 5 years had passed since our divorce. A relatively amicable separation after 7 years of marriage that had started strong but gradually unraveled through miscarriages, career conflicts, and the growing realization that we wanted fundamentally different futures. I wanted children. He didn't. I dreamed of leaving Boston to start a small-town veterinary practice. He was committed to his corporate law career in the city. Eventually, we both accepted that love wasn't enough to bridge those incompatibilities. We'd maintained a distant but cordial relationship since then, exchanging occasional texts on birthdays and brief, polite conversations when we unexpectedly crossed paths at mutual friends' gatherings. But a wedding invitation? That felt like crossing an unspoken boundary. I carried the invitation to my kitchen table, where my 5-year-old daughter, Willow, was methodically arranging apple slices into a smiley face on her plate. "What's that, Mommy?" she asked, pointing a sticky finger toward the envelope. "Just an invitation, sweetie. Someone I used to know is getting married. Like a princess wedding? With a big white dress?" I smiled despite my confusion. "Probably. Most brides wear white dresses. Can I come too? I've never been to a real wedding." Her enthusiasm made my heart twist. At 5, Willow was entering the phase of princess obsession and romantic fairy tales. A wedding would be magical through her eyes, but bringing my daughter to my ex-husband's wedding seemed wildly inappropriate, especially since Willow's father, Marcus, and I were currently navigating a complicated custody situation. Marcus and I had never married. Our relationship had been brief but intense, a rebound for me after my divorce, though I hadn't recognized it as such at the time. When I discovered I was pregnant, Marcus had initially been supportive, but by Willow's first birthday, he had moved across the country for a job opportunity, maintaining only sporadic contact with his daughter. Now, 4 years later, he had suddenly reappeared in our lives, armed with a high-powered attorney and demands for equal custody, claiming his absence had been my fault for alienating him from his child. The accusation was absurd. I had documentation of every unanswered text, every missed video call, every birthday that passed without so much as a card from him. But the legal system could be unpredictable, and the thought of losing Willow for half her childhood terrified me. The custody hearing was scheduled for next month, and my focus needed to be on preparing for that battle, not on attending my ex-husband's wedding. Yet something about the invitation nagged at me. It wasn't like Valencia to make empty gestures. That evening, after Willow was asleep, I called my closest friend, Imogen. "Did you get one too?" I asked when she answered. "Valencia's wedding invitation?" "Yes, this morning." "I assumed you would as well. Doesn't it seem strange? We haven't been in their social circle for years." Imogen hesitated. "Actually, I've kept in touch with Valencia. We meet for coffee every few months. Nothing deep, just catching up." This was news to me. "And you never mentioned it?" "It didn't seem important to bring up. You were moving on with your life, building your practice, raising Willow. Valencia's always asked about you, how you're doing. She seemed genuinely happy when I told her about your veterinary clinic's success." I sank onto my couch, trying to process this information. "So you think the invitation is sincere? Not some awkward obligation or, worse, a way to show off how well he's doing without me?" "Valencia isn't petty like that," Imogen said firmly. "If she invited you, she means it. Though I wouldn't blame you if you declined." After we hung up, I stared at the invitation again. The wedding was 3 weeks away at the Harborview Hotel, an upscale venue overlooking Boston Harbor. The thought of watching Valencia exchange vows with someone new stirred complicated feelings. Not jealousy exactly, but a wistful acknowledgement of what might have been if we'd been more compatible in the ways that ultimately matter. I set the invitation on my desk, undecided. Between my busy veterinary practice and the looming custody battle, attending my ex's wedding was hardly a priority. Yet a small voice in the back of my mind whispered that declining might be interpreted as lingering resentment, and I had worked too hard on building my new life to have anyone believe I was still holding on to the past. What I couldn't possibly know then was how this seemingly insignificant decision whether to attend a wedding would dramatically collide with the most important legal battle of my life, creating a situation so improbable that even now, I sometimes struggle to believe it actually happened. For a week, I left the invitation propped against my kitchen windowsill, a cream-colored reminder of an unexpected dilemma. Each morning as I made Willow's breakfast, I'd glance at it, still undecided. "Are we going to the princess wedding?" Willow asked on day 5, apparently having decided the invitation was indeed for a royal event. "I haven't decided yet, sweetie," I replied, pouring milk over her cereal. "You should wear your blue dress," she said decisively, "the one with the sparkles. You look like Elsa in that one." I smiled at her 5-year-old logic. The sparkles were subtle sequins on a cocktail dress I'd worn once to a fundraiser. The fact that Willow remembered it highlighted how rarely I dressed up these days. My life revolved around veterinary scrubs, jeans for playground outings, and the occasional business casual outfit for parent-teacher meetings. That afternoon, I received a text from Valencia that tipped the scales. "Hope you got the invitation. Would genuinely love to have you there. No pressure, but you were an important part of my life for a long time, V." Direct, sincere, and lacking any hint of awkwardness, so typical of Valencia. Despite our fundamental differences, I'd always appreciated her straightforwardness. I texted back, "Thank you for including me. I'd be happy to attend. Congratulations." Her reply came quickly. "Wonderful. There's a +1 option if you'd like to bring someone." The thought of bringing a date to my ex's wedding seemed absurd, but attending alone felt equally daunting. After some consideration, I called my sister Fiona, who lived an hour outside Boston. "You're asking me to be your date to your ex-husband's wedding?" Fiona clarified, amusement evident in her voice. "Not a date," I corrected. "Moral support. Besides, you always liked Valencia." "True. He was definitely the most tolerable of your partners." She paused. "Present company excluded, of course." "How is the Marcus situation?" I sighed, glancing at the stack of legal documents on my desk. "Stressful. My lawyer seems confident, but Marcus has hired someone aggressive from a big firm. The hearing's set for 3 weeks from Thursday. After the wedding, right?" "Yes, the following week." "Then you definitely need a distraction. Count me in for the wedding." With that decided, I checked will attend on the RSVP card and returned my focus to the custody case. My lawyer, Eleanor Fahm, had requested another meeting to review our strategy. Eleanor was competent, but overworked, a common situation at the modestly priced firm I could afford. Marcus, meanwhile, had returned to Boston with seemingly unlimited resources and a determination to disrupt the stable life I'd built for Willow. "His claims of parental alienation are weak," Eleanor assured me as we sat in her cluttered office. "You have documentation showing you facilitated communication consistently. The issue will be his explanation for the 4-year absence, which is, he's claiming he was finding himself and establishing financial stability to be a better provider, and that he tried to maintain a relationship but felt unwelcome in your life." I scoffed. "He was finding himself while I was working 60-hour weeks to launch my practice and raising our daughter alone? And unwelcome?" I literally begged him to be involved. Eleanor nodded sympathetically. "I know. And we have the receipts, the unanswered texts, the missed child support payments. But the court tends to favor biological parents maintaining relationships with their children, even when they've been inconsistent." "Inconsistent?" I repeated incredulously. "He's seen Willow exactly 3 times in 4 years. Which is why we need to focus on establishing that you've never prevented access." While emphasizing the importance of stability in Willow's life, she shuffled some papers. "The good news is that we've been assigned Judge Brennan for the hearing. She's fair, thorough, and doesn't tolerate obvious manipulation of the system. Have you appeared before her often?" "A few times. She's relatively new to family court, transferred from corporate law about a year. But she's developing a reputation for cutting through nonsense and focusing on the child's best interests." I left Eleanor's office feeling cautiously optimistic. If the judge could see through Marcus's sudden convenient interest in fatherhood, perhaps this nightmare would soon be behind us. The following weeks passed in a blur of preparations. Fiona arrived the Friday before the ceremony, bringing welcome energy into our small but comfortable home. "You seem remarkably calm about attending your ex's wedding," she observed as we shared a bottle of wine after Willow was asleep. "I considered this. Honestly, the custody case is consuming all my anxiety bandwidth. Valencia's wedding feels almost inconsequential in comparison." "Fair enough. Just promise me one thing. Don't drink too much champagne and make a dramatic toast about the road not taken." I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. No dramatic toasts. Just a brief appearance to wish them well, then a graceful exit before the cake cutting. What I didn't realize was that this wedding would be anything but inconsequential. With implications. I couldn't possibly imagine ones that would ripple directly into the courtroom where Willow's future would be decided. The Harborview Hotel lived up to its name, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering spectacular views of Boston Harbor as the late afternoon sun cast a golden glow across the water. Fiona and I arrived to find the ballroom transformed by cascading white orchids and twinkling lights. "This is definitely fancier than your wedding was," Fiona whispered. "Valencia's new fiancé must be doing well for himself." "Desmond's in finance," I replied. "Investment banking or venture capital, something like that." We found our assigned table near the back of the room, a polite distance from the head table. As we settled in, Valencia approached, looking genuinely pleased to see me. He was still handsome in the same understated way, though his dark hair now had threads of silver at the temples. "Cordelia!" he exclaimed. "I'm so glad you came." "Congratulations," I said, accepting his brief, friendly hug. "Everything looks beautiful." "Thanks. Desmond has impeccable taste." He smiled at Fiona. "Good to see you again. Still terrorizing the Boston art scene?" "Trying my best," Fiona replied with a grin. "Listen," he said, lowering his voice slightly. "I wanted to thank you for coming. I know it might be awkward, but it means a lot to Desmond and me to have people here who've been important in our lives." His sincerity was touching. "I'm happy for you, Valencia. Truly." After he left to join the wedding party, Fiona raised an eyebrow. "Desmond and me, not Desmond and I, did you know?" I nodded. I suspected during our marriage. Valencia never confirmed it until after we separated. It was part of why things ended. He was trying to conform to his family's expectations. The ceremony was beautiful. Valencia and Desmond entered from opposite sides of the room, meeting in the middle before proceeding together to the altar. As vows were exchanged, I felt a surprising sense of closure. Seeing Valencia so obviously happy reinforced that our divorce had been right for both of us. During the reception transition, an elderly woman with a walking cane approached our table looking confused. "Excuse me," she said, consulting her seating card. "I believe I meant to be at table 14, but I can't seem to find it." I glanced at our centerpiece. "This is table 14. Perhaps there's been a mix-up." The woman's face fell. "Oh dear, I'm Desmond's great-aunt Margaret. I flew in from Chicago specially for the wedding. Please take my seat," I offered, standing up. "I can check with the coordinator about where I should be." "Oh, I couldn't possibly. I insist," I said firmly. "You should be with family on such an important day." I made my way to the wedding coordinator, a hurried-looking woman clutching a tablet near the entrance. "There seems to be a seating confusion," I explained. I gave up my seat to Desmond's great-aunt Margaret. The coordinator checked her tablet, frowning. "I'm so sorry. Would you mind terribly sitting at the head table? We have an unexpected vacancy. One of Desmond's groomsmen had a family emergency." Before I could protest, she was already leading me there, explaining the situation to Desmond, who graciously welcomed me. And so I found myself much closer to the center of attention than I'd anticipated, making polite conversation with Valencia's mother and Desmond's brother. As dessert was served, Valencia leaned over to me. "Thank you for being so accommodating with Aunt Margaret. Desmond was worried she wouldn't make it. She had hip surgery just last month." "It's no problem. She seems lovely." "She is. She was the first person Desmond came out to, years before he told his parents. I wish I'd had someone like that in my family." When the first dance was announced, I excused myself to use the restroom, needing a moment to process the unexpected emotional resonance of the evening. In the elegant marble bathroom, I caught my reflection, my blue sparkly dress, my hair in a simple updo. I looked poised, not at all like someone whose world was threatened by an impending custody battle. As I reapplied my lipstick, a woman in a striking midnight blue gown entered. She was approximately my age, with dark hair styled in an elegant bob and an air of quiet authority. "Beautiful wedding," she commented, washing her hands at the sink beside me. "Yes, it is," I agreed. "Are you a friend of Valencia's or Desmond's?" "Desmond. We worked together years ago." She met my eyes in the mirror. "And you?" "I'm Valencia's ex-wife, actually." Her eyebrows rose slightly. "That's unusually civilized," I smiled. "We've both moved on to lives that make more sense for who we really are. No reason not to celebrate each other's happiness." She nodded appreciatively. A refreshingly mature perspective. Not common in my line of work, unfortunately. "What do you do?" "I'm a judge. Family court primarily." My interest piqued. "Really? I have a family court hearing next week. Custody case. Good luck with that." she said sincerely. I hope you get a fair hearing. With a final glance at her reflection, she left the bathroom, leaving me wishing someone with her appreciation for maturity could be the judge for my case. The rest of the evening passed pleasantly. As we prepared to leave, Valencia found us to say goodbye. Thank you again for coming, he said, hugging me one last time, and for being so gracious about the seating confusion. It was my pleasure. Aunt Margaret is a delight. He smiled warmly. She asked me to tell you she's putting in a good word for you with the universe. Apparently you mentioned something about a court case? I nodded, touched by the elderly woman's concern. Custody hearing. A daughter's father suddenly wants equal time after being essentially absent for 4 years. I'm sorry you're going through that. From what I've heard about how you've raised your daughter, any judge with sense would see you're a wonderful mother. What I didn't realize then was that this wedding would soon connect to my custody case in a way I could never have anticipated, and that the woman in the midnight blue dress would play a pivotal role in Willow's future. 10 days after Valencia's wedding, I sat nervously in the family court waiting area. Fiona had taken the day off to watch Willow, sparing my daughter from witnessing the proceedings that would determine her future. Eleanor reviewed our documents one last time, occasionally glancing at Marcus and his attorney across the room. My ex looked polished and confident in an expensive suit that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. We'd had minimal interactions since his return to Boston, just one supervised visit with Willow that had been awkward and strained, with my daughter clinging to me and barely acknowledging the virtual stranger who was her biological father. Remember, Eleanor whispered, Judge Brennan values stability and consistency. Focus on your documented efforts to keep Marcus involved. The life you've built for Willow, her routines and attachments. I nodded, trying to calm my racing heart. Everything that mattered most to me hinged on the next few hours. Markham and Reynolds' custody case, Judge Brennan presiding, the bailiff announced. All parties please enter. We filed into the courtroom, taking our positions at separate tables. My eyes remained downcast, focused on arranging my papers until I heard the bailiffs all rise and the click of the judge's door. When I finally looked up, the shock nearly knocked me breathless. Entering in judicial robes was the woman from the wedding bathroom, the elegant stranger in midnight blue with whom I'd shared that brief, meaningful exchange. Our eyes met, and I saw the moment of recognition flicker across her face. Judge Amara Brennan, the woman Desmond's great-aunt had displaced me for, the judge who would decide Willow's fate. For a terrible moment I feared she might recuse herself, delaying our case even further. Instead, after the briefest hesitation, she composed her features and proceeded professionally. Good morning. I've reviewed the filings in this case thoroughly, she began. Before opening statements, I'd like to clarify my expectations. This court's primary concern is the child's well-being. Arguments should focus on what arrangement will best serve her interests, not parental conveniences or preferences. The proceedings unfolded with a surprising efficiency. Judge Brennan asked pointed questions that cut through Marcus's attorney's grandiose claims about his client's parental intentions. When Marcus testified about his spiritual journey that had kept him away for 4 years, she pressed him on specifics about Willow's allergies, her school schedule, her pediatrician's name, basic information any involved parent would know. He couldn't answer a single question correctly. When it was my turn, I spoke calmly about our daily routines, Willow's developmental progress, the stability of our home, and my documented attempts to include Marcus in her life despite his disinterest. After 4 intense hours, Judge Brennan delivered her ruling. I would retain primary custody, with Marcus granted graduated visitation rights starting with supervised visits and potentially increasing based on consistent participation and Willow's comfort level. Mr. Reynolds, she concluded, parenthood isn't a right you can exercise at your convenience. It's a privilege earned through consistent presence and genuine care. Ms. Markham has demonstrated that commitment. You have not. This arrangement gives you the opportunity to prove you can be the father your daughter deserves. As we prepared to leave, Judge Brennan briefly caught my eye. No words were exchanged, but her slight nod conveyed understanding. Not of our bathroom conversation, but of a deeper truth. Sometimes kindness, like giving up a seat at a wedding, reveals more about a person's character than any testimony ever could.